Welcome in to the Blurred Wire. Today, we are continuing our countdown towards Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, releasing everywhere May 10th. Am I right? May 10th, something like that.
That sounds good to me.
That sounds
That's a
good to
good
me.
day. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's do it
let's
on
do
May
it.
10th.
May 10th. So in order to get ready, we are looking at all the films that came before this one. And that last week we did Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So this week we are doing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. That was directed by Matt Reeves. And so first, always, I'm here with my co-host Ty. If you want to say hello to everybody,
How you doing, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Hug your loved ones. Tell them you care.
because you never know when a virus could destroy all the humans on Earth, leaving just the apes.
Exactly.
That's why you hug your loved ones.
Also, hug if you have a pet ape, hug your pet ape because you never
Right.
know when the apocalypse comes if they spare you and let you die by a virus instead of being brutally mauled by sentient apes.
Amen. Amen. And if you're an ape, hug your fellow apes because you never know when you're going to be leading your people and then be betrayed by one of your friends and literally shot in the back.
Because apes together strong.
Yep. I think that's the main message. So
That's
I guess
that's the takeaway I
that's
have.
the takeaway. So I guess you might as well go ahead and dive in. So of course, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was directed by Matt Reeves. And I think
Hmm.
I mentioned this a little bit ago, but I'm like, it's very interesting how like someone saw what he did on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and then War of the Planet of the Apes, and they were like, you should do Batman.
You should do Batman.
And I feel like I see the correlation. A movie about apes taking over the world just translates seamlessly to the darkness of Gotham and Batman fighting the Riddler.
Yeah, they're really not wrong. I think it's a great I think it's a great follow-up.
I can't think of a better comp, honestly. I just,
And he had chops for like that post-apocalyptic like destroyed environment setting with Cloverfield before that
hmm
he directed that I love Cloverfield. First Cloverfield is such a like a cult classic of a
Yeah.
monster flick.
I think we
And then
watched
he
it together a couple of times, didn't we?
I think so.
I think so,
That
yeah.
and that and 10 Cloverfield Lane, the sequel,
hmm
I think we've seen together. Um, but he knows how to handle a really dirty, grungy city, whether it be from actively being destroyed, whether it's crime-ridden and slimy, or in this case, it's post-apocalyptic
Yep.
and without power for a decade, because this picks up a decade after Rise. And I gotta say, I really love Dawn. Really love Dawn of the
Really?
Planet of
I
the
was about
Apes.
to ask you, like, what are your first thoughts compared to Rise? How do you think about it? Like, what do you feel about it?
I was absolutely like again because I liked Rise more than I was expecting. And so
hmm
so after that, this raised the bar a little bit more because it's my first time ever seeing this movie. And still, this was way better than I was expecting it to be. I mean, I think like at its core, it's this really tight, like revenge story almost. And this narrative between, you
hmm
have these two tribes, these two civilizations that are at like a wit's end with each other. The
hmm
tension, the brink of war is present throughout, and it's just pure miscommunication
Yeah.
throughout that makes it that kind of agonizing, like, oh God, if only like you guys could just be talking, like none of this would be happening, and it
Right.
leads to all out war. But it's done in such a realistic way,
hmm
such a way that you feel you can empathize to varying degrees of everyone on both sides that makes it all just feel messy in the best way.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a big, um, testament to like this is how a lot of wars begin. A lot of times it's because of miscommunication, because people don't talk, because people, someone says something, tensions get a little bit higher, and next thing you know, we're in World War III or the Vietnam War, all these different wars. I feel like it was a really good precursor, especially compared to like there might be even if the leader doesn't want war, like I said, some of these people beneath them, you can see how like people that aren't necessarily in charge are the ones like pulling the strings. Like for me, the human side is very interesting because the main guy, played by Gary Oldman, he was ready to kill the apes, but he didn't want to. I feel like I got that a lot from him. He's like, I don't want to kill them, but I will if I have to.
Hmm.
The lead scientist guy, I can't remember who he was played by, but the one who wanted to use it as a dam and like try to broker peace with the
Hmm.
apes, sorry, he wanted peace at all costs. No matter what we have to do, we need to keep the peace. We
Right,
need to stay peaceful. There's only so many of us left. And
right.
then there was the other guy who brought the gun into the encampment and he just wanted to kill them. He just wanted to kill the apes. And so you can see how like three different perspectives can all lead to vastly different circumstances based on the way small little things play out.
Right. And it didn't feel like their aggression was without reason, and it made it compelling because I like on both sides there are parallels. Jason Clarke's Malcolm, the human who wants peace at all costs.
No, that
He
was him.
feels like very much reflected by Caesar and them coming to learn each other, both wanting to emphasize the kindness
Mhm.
represent being, beacons of that kind of kindness. And then the other guy, I think his name was Carver. Was it Carver, the man who brought the gun? I
I'm not
think
sure. Let me see if I can find it real quick
I
while you're
think
going
it
on with
was
that.
Carver, but like he feels very reflected in Koba.
Yep.
Both very distrustful of the other side, but they're not necessarily without reason. Carver has seen violence onto humans by apes, but Koba himself was experimented on and brutally tortured by humans that leads him to be so distrustful. And so you can feel for Caesar throughout the movie as he's reckoning, trying to keep the peace while at the same time not giving in to that pure hatred, and how
Mhm.
things unfold is just really cool.
Yeah, and you're right. Um,
Yep,
his name is Carver, and he's
it
played by
was Carver.
Kirk Acevedo.
Okay, it was Carver.
And Gary Oldman's character's name is Dreyfus.
Yes.
Um, and I think, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Based upon what Koba and Carver went through, you can understand why they feel the way that they do, even if
Right,
you recognize it as being extreme. But the
right.
thing that like hits the most to me too, to me, this movie is such an important um testament to forgiveness as well as the danger of thinking that you're superior, right? Because Koba and Carver allowed those feelings of being beat down, like Carver being attacked by apes, Koba being experimented by humans, into believing that their race, that they were superior, that they
Hmm.
deserved to be on top. He believed humans should be on top of apes, and Koba believed that apes should be on top of humans.
Hmm.
And that's what created, and that's because they felt the oppression from the other side. And
Right,
Caesar, he has felt that too, right? He's
right.
felt humans oppressing him, but he was able to forgive them because of what he went through with James Franco's character, because he sees the good in humans. He was able to forgive even the ones that like he didn't harbor that hate anymore. So whether you consider it um forgiveness or just letting go of resentment or any of that, Caesar doesn't have it. And while Koba did go through something slightly worse than Caesar, like he was like tortured,
Yeah,
um, and Caesar had a much better upbringing compared to Koba. Both of them
absolutely.
have experienced oppression by humans in some form. The difference
Hmm.
is, again, Caesar, he also got to experience a lot of the good, and so he allowed that to heal the resentment. He didn't allow the resentment didn't overtake all the good that he's felt. And so I think it's a very, I mean, like we're comparing apes and humans, but it's like it's a very powerful theme, like almost to reply to like race relations. Like I would love to see Matt Reeves' take on like a almost like a race relations movie, but I don't really
Hmm.
know how that would work. But
I think like I'm totally with you that I think that's like it's a classic story, like it's a classic type of story to tell. This one that explores the nature of revenge and how long it really lasts and how long, it's effective.
Mhm.
Because I think this movie makes a really good case for telling that story well and showing how short sided revenge is, how
Hmm.
it will only lead to further revenge. Revenge begets revenge begets revenge, and the only cure for it is to stop feeding it,
Hmm.
is to just let go. It and that looks different for whatever circumstance that is. And unfortunately, with Koba and Carver, we don't see a positive resolution with either of
Hmm.
their characters. Neither of them grow outside of that. But thematically, on the whole, I think we see that reminder that there is that bridge, and it's through letting go of that negativity and pushing past it. Easier said
Hmm.
than done, and
Yeah,
looks
obviously.
different regardless in every different circumstance, but
Hmm.
that is the path.
Yeah. And I think one of my favorite things about this film as well is just, again, from the first film, Matt Reeves hit the nail on the head. The human characters are not important. There's so many movies that deal with aliens or extraterrestrials or something that's not human, and they always want to focus it on the humans. And usually that's where some of the worst projects are. I mean,
Mhm.
Godzilla and Kong, we just talked about it, how much we didn't like it because it focused so much on the side story with humans. And again, humans don't require as much CGI as all the apes did, but in this movie,
Mhm.
clearly they were more concerned about telling a good story rather than how much budget it's going to be. And even if
Mhm.
that meant like, hey, because we're because the story is going to stretch out over 3 movies or something like that, and we're not going to have as much action, because I'm sure the action sequences with the apes cost a lot more on CGI than the
Mhm.
just, talking and kind of building up a storyline scenes. But
Mhm.
again, they were very committed to the good story, which
Mhm.
I think is really powerful. I mean, my wife and I just finished watching Knuckles because we loved the Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movies that came out, and they made a
Mhm.
spin-off series. Have you seen it yet? Because I don't want to spoil it for you. But
I have not.
okay, are
No.
you planning on it? I know I just kind of randomly brought this up, but it just
I've
reminded
uh
me of it.
I've heard it's rough from what I've heard.
It's the same problem as Godzilla and Kong. Like so like it's supposed to be about Knuckles training this guy to be a warrior, Wade Whipple from, and he was like always this funny comic relief guy. Didn't really
Uh-huh.
have much of a story, but he was funny when he popped up. The entire show is about him. They should have
Mhm.
called it Wade Whipple because he literally drives the entire narrative. It's about
Mhm.
him. Like his it's more about his character growth than Knuckles. Knuckles is a side character
In his own
show,
show.
in
Mhm.
his own show. And I'm like, I don't know if they didn't want to show him again because more of the CGI budget. Was it too much to pay Idris Elba? But it's like, I don't want to see a project about Wade Whipple,
Right. I came here because it's
right?
called Knuckles.
I came here to see Knuckles. I came here to see Knuckles. Like, see, even I didn't even need to see Knuckles like punching stuff, but I want to see his character grow, not
Sure.
Wade's. Like,
Right.
that's what I'm here
If you're
for.
gonna have
So,
character growth. But
right.
I think Don does it well in that manner
Hmm.
too. Like I think like obviously like humans do play a part in this movie, but it's
Obviously.
more so in a reflection of the apes as they're growing. And that's
Hmm.
why majority of our time is spent with Caesar and his clan. We don't spend as much foundational time with the humans because get it we get it. We already know how
Yeah.
human
What
society
humans are
works
like.
and
Yeah.
natural instincts of humans. What we don't know is how the apes are doing.
And I think it was very, and I think it was, I don't know if it was done on purpose or maybe if it was just a subtle change, but almost like because they're using completely different actors, I feel like that helped really settle in that this is about the apes as well. Because like it's a shared universe, it's a sequel. Caesar is
Hmm.
still in it, but it's like again, everyone from the past movie, in it's partly because they're dead, obviously. But if they
Hmm.
wanted to, they could have brought back a couple of human actors, and maybe they did, but like I don't recognize like all of them are completely new actors
Hmm.
because again, they're the side characters. This movie
Right.
is called Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, not humans on the planet where the apes like like is clearly
Right.
about the planet
That's the
where the
spinoff.
apes
Humans on the planet where the apes reside.
reside came up. And I think that's Yeah, because I mean, again, it's like we're humans, of course. Naturally, we're gonna want to make stories about humans, but it's like
Speak for yourself. I
I
never said I
guess
was human,
maybe
man.
it's easier to make stories about humans to think about from the human perspective. But to me, the best stories that always involve humans and, some other kind of species, whether it's animal or alien or whatever, it's always better when they focus on what's new, what's interesting, the species, rather than the humans. It
Hmm.
always has been, always will be. And that's why Dawn, like I said, I agree. It is a fantastic movie. And I think it does a great job setting up the rest of the franchise, which we're going to get to see in a couple of weeks.
So how do you think what do you think of the directing style, how it this differs from Rise? Because
That's mhm,
Matt with a new director comes a new
mhm.
style, and it definitely feels very different. Enough connective tissue, but it feels like its own thing. How did you feel?
I think Matt Reeves is a little bit more subtle in a lot of the things that he does.
Mhm.
I mean, like Carver, we could tell that he was not feeling humans, right? Um, I mean, not feeling apes. Sorry.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like he allowed, like, I feel like in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, um, he made it very clear about that one human that was like torturing the apes and how he felt like he was superior and all this stuff. And I
Yeah.
feel like Koba was a little bit more subtle. We got to see him kind of get worse and worse and worse. Like from the beginning of the movie, I don't think he was planning on, shooting Caesar and going to attack all those humans at the end. I
Hmm.
feel like that's a burn that we got to see happen with his character. Like at the end of Rise of the
Hmm.
Planet of the Apes, he wasn't prepared to go march back into San Francisco and just kill all those humans. He was prepared to just go live in the jungle. And
Hmm.
then I feel like through the events of what happened, the ape getting shot, the just the tensions rising, you could see the inner turmoil within him. And I feel like we
Hmm.
got to see a lot of character growth from him, which, um, like I said, it's hard for me to. I feel like Matt Reeves did a great job of picking up on the same style of storytelling as Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So it didn't feel so different that it was like a different movie or like a different context.
Hmm.
I think he kept the character stories going in a naturally progressing way. But I think the way he introduced elements was a little bit more subtle than the previous director, whose name I can't think of.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I think I think the post-apocalyptic like setting of Earth, or like very early in the post-apocalypse, it feels very natural for his style. It feels like more at home for Matt Reeves than say
Hmm.
like right before things turn south. And so I think there's this a stronger need to survive in everything. Everyone, like, survival is not as much a given as it
Yeah.
is in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Basic necessities become instrumental, and it leads tensions to be higher. And so I feel like even though this is after everything, it almost feels like to me like the stakes are higher now because everyone
Hmm.
is that much more desperate, and there's way more direct conflict with this movie. And I think he does a great job at that.
Hmm.
There's a lot of like the very end, like the final main battle where the apes begin to storm the human um the human compound. Like it feels like such an exciting scene in a moment. Like there's that shot where it just sits and follows the tank as it's spinning, and it's slowly just doing a 360 turn. Well, there's war happening all around, and
Yeah.
an ape is coming in to take over the tank, and it's just this really cool memorable shot of this 360 of this battlefield of the apes like coming in and taking over. It's very visually striking and cool.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think for the apocalyptic nature, Matt Reeves definitely captures that very well. And again, that's not to say that like I don't know how I gotta look up his name before I mention it, how Rupert Wyatt would have done it because he was kind of setting up the apocalyptic nature.
Hmm.
But I think Matt Reeves definitely did a phenomenal job of once he had that setting of really running with it. in showing how desperate the humans were because they were really desperate. They didn't really have anywhere else to turn. They were nervous for the survival of their species.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like he communicated that very well. And now I feel like I almost want to go back and watch Cloverfield and like kind of compare it to War of the Planet of the Apes as it's coming out because like that would be an interesting comparison as well to see like
Hmm.
how did that just like again the apocalyptic feel. And that's probably what inspired because like when I was watching the Batman, like it kind of felt like I remember seeing a pitch meeting for it, and he was like, "So we're gonna make the Batman. It's gonna be darker than the Dark Knight." And they were like, "How dark?" And he's like, "So dark that we're just gonna say that light bulbs in Gotham just don't work. People just don't turn on lights ever." And it made me laugh really hard because it's like, I mean, in that movie, it does kind of look like it
It's
was
really
some kind
dark.
of yeah. It looks like they're going through some kind of apocalypse, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
Like rent's got to be $50 in Gotham City because why is anybody living there?
Oh my God. Yeah.
And
It's like,
and
why is
why are there
everyone still there?
erudites? Why are there rich people living in Gotham?
And our light bulbs just not socially acceptable? I think that's what he said. It's like, we're going to make it so dark the light bulbs are not socially acceptable. So
Uh,
I think if I wanted an apocalyptic film, Matt Reeves is the guy I would go to. Like, he would have been great if he did like 2012. I feel like he injects a lot of realism into it. Like I said, the Batman was not an apocalyptic movie theme per se, so that's
mhm,
why it kind of is like, hey, this doesn't really almost match. But for movies where it is an apocalyptic theme, like 2012, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I would love to see him almost do like a disaster movie, like what's that one that just came out with Greenland? That was a pretty good one
mhm.
with Gerard Butler. Um, if he did Moonfall, I'm sure it would have been way better because that movie was horribly bad. Um, but yeah, it would be very interesting to see if Matt Reeves goes back to that, after he's done with this Batman franchise, kind of his roots.
Mhm. Yeah, I think he's a talented director. Everything I've seen, I've enjoyed of his recently. So
Hmm.
I'm on board. And I'm definitely on board for our next up movie, War for the Planet of the Apes.
War for the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, very excited for it. So yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up our thoughts for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Please let us know your thoughts down below. Did you like the movie? Did you think Matt Reeves did a good job? Did you
Hmm.
enjoy the themes that were being explored in it? Like we said, we probably could have kept talking about it for a much longer time, but it was a fantastic film. And we're excited to look at War for the Planet of the Apes and then check out Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes when it comes out in theaters May 10th. I'm about to buy my tickets right now because I already got a small group going because a bunch of my friends are pretty excited to go see it. So that'll be
Hmm.
pretty fun.
All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good. Take care.
Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.